Hello and welcome. I'm your host, William Liu. You're listening to the Hello and Welcome podcast presented by Betway. Make sure you follow Hello and Welcome wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe. Please rate and review the program. Please keep commenting, liking, subscribing to all our videos on YouTube. We're seeing great engagements there. And the more that you engage with the videos, the more that you like and watch every video, the more that our content gets pushed towards more Raptor fans and we grow this community. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Hello Welcome Pod. I'm joined by producer and co-host Alex Wong. And of course, we're also joined by theScore's Joseph Casciaro. Make sure you check out theScore app for all of Cash's NBA coverage. And of course, you can also watch his NBA takes of the week on theScore's Unfiltered series every Friday on YouTube. And of course, Cash, longtime friend. You might know this man from Raptor Blog Radio. You might have seen this man score top shelf Score FC week 1 of the season. I'll see you again on the pitch Friday. My captain. What's going on, Cash? How you doing?
Man, it's a long time coming. It feels like it's been too long since I've heard you say hello and welcome with me getting to share the stage with you guys. So pumped to do this.
Nobody's more pumped than Alex, man. You don't understand. No one's a bigger fan of Cash than Alex.
That's my guy, man. That's my manager right there.
Listen, man, what's there not to like about Joe Cash, man? First of all, Cash, I want to, congratulate Team Italy on a spirited run to the round of 16. Spirited championship defense of their Euro title.
Way to beat Croatia and then do nothing else.
That was pitiful, man. That was honestly humiliating. And actually, it wasn't that humiliating because the team they brought to the tournament was trash, and I kind of knew they weren't going to do anything. But the way they bowed out is just uninspiring.
Yeah, I'm waiting for those Italy kits to be 50% off at the Adidas store.
They'll be 50% off for this run. Yeah. That's for damn sure.
And I'll be snatching those up. So yeah, otherwise, how's it been going, Cash? Just want to shout out to, I know you guys, obviously people know you and Wolon for the Pound the Rock podcasts. And I know you guys just put out your penultimate episode. And before we get going to just, want to show some love to Pound the Rock too. I've always told people it's my favorite NBA podcast. Learned so much about teams that I never watched from Wolon, and learn so much just from you, showing what it's like to actually watch basketball throughout the season and have a good knowledge of all 30 teams. You guys have wonderful chemistry, and I hope maybe down the line you guys can find a way to come back, because I'm definitely gonna miss Pound the Rock.
I appreciate you, man. Appreciate both you and supporting the show all the years. Obviously, Will started the show. It was a 3-man weave when we first started it with Will, Wolon, and myself. Wolon and I then kept it going for another 5+ years. So it's been a good run. Definitely had fun doing it. Bittersweet to see the end of it, but you can still keep getting Wolon and I's coverage and content at theScore. But yeah, definitely the end of an era with the pod coming to an end.
Did you have a favorite? Because Wolon likes to gripe about things. He's very opinionated, which is good. This is good for a podcast, right? You bring a lot of material to it. Did you have a favorite like Wolon take, or like that he bricked? Because Wolon is like really like well studied, measured. Talking about heliocentric offenses, talking about how zoom action is going to change things for the Chicago Bulls, et cetera, et cetera. Did you have a favorite Wolon like hot take that he was super obsessed about that just didn't quite pan out?
Honestly, there's not one that comes to my mind, because the thing with Wolon, and you guys know this, is that with Wolon, he is so well studied. I compliment him for it, but I definitely think and I don't consider myself a hot take guy. Like, I think I'm pretty well measured and everything too, but if one of us is like the hot take guy, it's definitely me. And I feel like Wolon tries not to just throw things out there that he's not, studied in and confident in. And so I think the thing that sticks out to me as a memory with Wolon and anything close to a hot take was the 2019-20 Heat. I was all in on that team and was so confident that no matter what happened in the regular season, they were going to be a problem in the playoffs. I love Jimmy, blah, 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 Heat culture, all that. And Wolon was so adamant that I was sniffing glue about that team. That then when the Heat end up making that bubble run to the finals, go to the Game 6 against the Lakers, Jimmy has like one of the best playoff performances we've ever seen. Heat culture's all the rage. Wolon was just seething about it to the point where then the following season, when the Heat took a step back, he took that as a victory lap, as if to say, see, I was right about the Heat all along, even though they had just made the finals. So I looked at it as like, I was right. They made the finals in the year I was saying they were going to do something. But I think that's my favorite Wolon Pound the Rock memory, is that he took a victory lap in 2021 as a way of saying his 2020 take was right.
Yeah, well, you're a certified Riley file, so we know you got to support the Miami Heat. Do you guys think, because, I think one of the big highlights for Wolfon earlier this season was, he wrote this wonderful
Can I just say, I love that we're having a full Wolfon conversation without Wolfon here. Wolfon was not supposed to be, vacation. Wolfon's hanging with family right now. He's off today. Just so everyone knows, I don't want, I didn't come on the show purposely without Wolfon so that we can talk about Wolfon, but please do continue.
The RSVP is being sent to the cottage wherever he's at right now, is all I'm saying.
This man portaging as we speak, man. He got a canoe over his head. He loves that stuff.
He's got his Stuff White People Like book out. He's got to check it all off, man.
He got a Frisbee in his backpack,
He probably just joined a pickleball league. But like JJ Redick, shared one of his articles earlier this season. You guys think Wolfon's name came up as JJ was looking to assemble his coaching staff?
The funny thing is, one of our one of the cool things about, obviously, again, bittersweet, but one of the cool things, and I know you guys have been through it on another scale too, but when you announce that a show's ending, whatever, you get a lot of people reaching out to tell you how much the show meant to them, where they listened from, whatever. It's awesome. But one of the people that reached out, because someone else had asked why the show was ending, and before we could say anything, another one of our listeners replied to that guy saying probably because Wolfon is going to join JJ Redick's staff.
He was going to be Joe Wolfon, Jason Gallagher, and Tate Alter.
Wolfon leaving Pound the Rock to go from working one-on-one with Joseph Casciaro to working one-on-one with Bronny James every day. Wow.
Yo, man, the Zoom action is going to change everything for the Lakers, man. AD's not going to know what happened when they start running Zoom action. Sorry.
Man, no, I don't know what's more love than starting a podcast, talking about Joseph Wolfon for a full 10 minutes, man.
Oh, yeah.
Damn.
No, shouts to you guys, man. No, you guys, legendary run. I know there's going to be a last episode planned, so we'll save the goodbyes for then. But I do want to wish both of you guys the best of success and future. I mean, you guys will be covering basketball regardless, so it's not like you guys are disappearing. But I will miss hearing Wolfon say, well, and then go into a 10-second point about Zoom action. All right, we are gonna move on.
Oh God,
Alex, you got some Raptor content for us, and you wanted us to grade the Raptors offseason, so go ahead.
Yeah, so today we're gonna run through free agency exit survey. Free agency looks like it's just about over. Give or take a DeMar DeRozan signing. And it looks like the Raptors offseason for now might be done as well. So, the Raptors did most of their work before the start of free agency. Obviously a lot of players were taken at the draft. They traded for Davion Mitchell and Sasha Vezenkov, who looks like he's trying to sneak his way to Olympiacos every day. They signed Emmanuel quickly to a new deal, Scotty on a max extension. And then big news this week, bringing back veteran Garrett Temple on a 1-year deal. So really what's left for them is, what's going to happen to Bruce Brown. They picked up his $23 million option, and Gary Trent Jr. is still a free agent as we're recording this, and it's been reported by Michael Grange that the market for him is expected to be potentially below the mid-level exception. So just looking at the Raptors offseason as a whole, start with you, Cash. How would you grade their offseason based on what you were expecting them to do?
Honestly, even though it was pretty quiet, I'm giving them a solid B. I don't think they did anything of enough significance for me to give them an A, but I think what you're seeing right now is a team and an organization that, in stark contrast to this time last year, knows exactly who they are, where they are in their competitive cycle, and what their plan is, right? They added 4 young players via the draft. I think all of them bring some measure of excitement and optimism. They turned a player that had no future here in Jalen McDaniels into a couple players who may not factor into their long-term plans, but I would argue definitely have more upside than McDaniels. And they got a future second rounder in that deal, the Portland 2025 pick, that could be sneaky valuable, just like the Detroit pick was this year. So to me, that's really good business. That was a good use of a trade exception too, to add surplus value. Those are the kind of incremental upgrades along the fringes and asset accumulation a team in the Raps' current position needs to nail. And that's the stuff, honestly, that the Raptors used to nail when they were slowly building, a championship program. So, and then obviously, as you mentioned, they locked up what right now are the 2 most important pieces of the future. Probably overpaid quickly. It's fine, but it was an overpay in my eyes. But they've locked those guys up for pretty much the rest of the decade. So I think when you add everything up, it was a solid offseason for a rebuilding team, which is what the Raptors became with the trades they made last season. But a rebuilding team that, as Masai Ujiri has reminded us before, a player in the mold of Scotty Barnes, that level of young talent, is like the most important step, right? The most important thing you're looking for as part of a rebuild. So even though it only really started last year that they bit the bullet, traded those guys, and really kickstarted the rebuild, I'd argue they're already moving to more like the middle stages of their rebuild, right? They're not starting from scratch here. I think this offseason was good.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with a B. To be honest, like, you can't really give them anything higher or anything lower. Anything lower would imply that you thought the Raptors are going to make some sort of huge move and make some sort of blockbuster trade. That was never going to happen. I mean, this team is kind of in the phase where I would compare, like, in the midseason, they were kind of moving. You know, you move, you tear down some things, you sell some furniture on Facebook Marketplace, and you just get out that situation. This offseason is more like cleaning up your house before some guests come over. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you set up a couple of little pieces here. Maybe you take some flyers here, make the team a little younger. I like that they improved their point of attack defense. That's something that this team was really lacking last year, was the defensive intensity. So hopefully you get some clarity there. Obviously, you know, you can continue to see maybe some smaller transactions, right? If a guy like Vincenkov ends up going to overseas, then that opens up another roster spot. Maybe you can like see some marginal movement there, but realistically, like, this team was already kind of set up during the season. So, you know, by paying Emmanuel Quickley and by paying Scotty, I agree with you that the Quickley extension's a little rich, but at the same time, like, it's sort of put up or shut up for those guys, right? Those guys need to lead this team and form an identity and show what the Raptors are about. Are we going to be a winning organization, or are we going to be another organization that's young, has some potential pieces, and just wins between 30 and 40 games a year? Because there's lots of teams like that out there, right? And it's up to these guys to sort of define that for the group. So the front office actually wasn't really going to dictate too much of what's going to happen this offseason. It was really just about what the young guys are going to take them to do next year. So.
I am excited, though, to at least go into a season and just kind of like watch a young team figure out who they are, but knowing that, like, okay, this is the core. These are the guys they're building with. Let's see what they've got. As opposed to, like I said, last year, where they didn't know what they were, what they even wanted to be, what the team was going to look like in a few months. Half their guys that, you know, reported to training camp last year, we couldn't even be sure they were going to be on the team. Like, the first half or more of last season honestly felt like a waste of time. Mm-hmm. And at least this year, I think there is, you know, like I said, like a plan.
Yeah.
They understand where they are in the cycle, and you know, we know they're not contending for anything of significance right now, but I do think there is something to be excited about and like a freshness to it to go into a season knowing who you are as a young team and, like, you know, seeing what you can become.
Yeah, no, last offseason was hilarious when you think back on it, right? Because you got Dennis Schroeder joining the team and talking about being a leader of the group. And I'm like, but you don't have any, like, you know, like, I appreciated the stories, and a lot of that was honestly told the conversations on the Raptors show. And obviously he came on a lot, right? But he was talking about being a leader for the group. But I was like, but what was the buy-in from the rest of the guys to be like, hey, this is our new leader, Dennis Schroeder, right? You got Pascal, who, you know, the whole media day fiasco was sort of like, whether that was misinterpreted or not, but clearly was on the way out, clearly was in lots of talks about trade rumors, didn't end up showing up to Summer League because he's like, why are you going to make me become the next DeMar DeRozan? I'm not going to come to Summer League just to get backstabbed. And so he was here. You knew that he was going to be here for a long time. OG, you know, just kind of doing his thing. Precious at the start of the season couldn't work out the extension off the rookie scale deal, and he was talking about how he's a top 5 defender. I mean, he's not even a top 5 free agent right now, and we're on Independence Day right now. Like, it just was such a mess going into last year. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden now it's like, at least you have clarity, and like, we're not expecting to win a ton of games, but like, we want to see what this group is. Like, who are these guys and what are the Raptors going to be about? Because for a long time, you kind of knew that. And for the first time, like, you're actually shifting away to something new.
Listen, I agree. I don't think the Raptors are going to win a ton of games, but I was thinking about it, and it's like, I don't know what the number is to be a play-in team in the East, but it's not going to be high, because I can name 5 teams that, listen, the Nets, the Wizards, the Nets and the Wizards for sure are tanking. The Pistons were one of the worst teams we ever saw last year, and I think they'll be better, but I don't think they're going to be much better. Like, I don't even think the Pistons are winning 30 games. The Bulls...
Yeah, I don't think Tobias Harris is going to be a 16-win difference, man.
No. The Bulls are pivoting finally to a rebuild. They waited too long and they screwed themselves, but they are pivoting to a rebuild seemingly. That's already 4 teams that I'm pretty confident if the Raptors are just like have average health, will be better than. And and Charlotte. So like, unless you think one of those 5 teams is better than the Raptors, then what you're saying is the Raptors are at least a play-in team.
Yeah, the play-in threshold last year was 36 for the Hawks.
I think it might be lower this year, man. Think of the 5 teams I just mentioned.
Bro, we need to cancel the play-in if the 36 is already in.
No, they need to make a new rule where if you're like below 500, you just don't make the play-in. Like at some point, they actually do need a threshold for this stuff.
Like they did first year. When
that's what they did in the bubble, right?
Yeah,
right.
You had to be within a certain amount of games behind 8th to qualify for the play-in. Of course, I mean it'll never happen now because they've got those extra TV dates locked in. And I don't think they're ever saying no to those. Especially
you can't miss television, man. Raptors versus who's going to be in the play-in, man? This like the Pacers. The Pacers going to have like 48 wins against the Raptors at 35,
and the Raptors knock their asses out after maxing out Pascal.
Oh my
but then we have to win another one. That's the issue.
Oh man, no. The other thing I was going to ask you, Cash, before we move off our obligatory Raptors content is when's Bruce Brown going to get moved?
Man,
oh brother.
I've seen reports that like the Raptors are asking for a 1st-round pick. And listen, I get that Bruce Brown like probably still is somewhere in there a solid role player, right? Who has championship experience, has played with stars. Like I get all that. But I don't know, man, like in this NBA economy with the second apron, with all the things that can restrict you from constructing really good teams in the future and teams seemingly, and you saw it with how slow free agency was out of the gates, teams being very careful about how they spend not only their money, but their assets if they're not like a true blue contender. Who is trading a 1st-round pick for Bruce Brown? Like, I'm not saying it's impossible. I just can't really talk myself into it if I was an NBA GM into giving up a 1st-round pick for Bruce Brown at this stage of his career. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't know. Like, you tell me, Will, do you see a team out there where you're like, oh, this team would give up a 1st for Bruce Brown?
No, this is why I said the Pascal Siakam trade was shit from the moment that it was announced.
I agree.
Like, and people were like, no, we got 3 first-round picks. Bruce Brown, like, you do this. I'm like, Bruce Brown could do what, man? Okay, now, honestly, Bruce Brown is a totally fine player, right? But can we acknowledge the fact that, like, how many players have left Denver and like their careers are, like, thriving? You know what I mean? Like, once you leave that Jokic ecosystem, like, there really is, like, a 10%, 15%, like, just reduction
KCP,
on your overall efficiency.
KCP about to go back to being ankle monitor KCP in Orlando, man. Like,
okay, all right. There we go. Yeah.
Wow.
Now I miss Pound the Rock even more.
Who was that spicy take sponsored by, man? Holy.
No, man, he didn't have the KFC jersey on for this one. No, but seriously, like with Bruce, like you're looking at Bruce's, can you take on another team's like long-term salary? Like, can you take on an Andrew Wiggins if the Warriors want to get rid of Andrew? Which at this point, I feel like Andrew actually might be needed there. How many big wings do they have left? You know, they got a lot of guards. You know, they might actually need Andrew. Or like you take on like a DeAndre Hunter or something like that if the Hawks are just straight up looking to dump him. Like you're looking at the value for the expiring. As the player, I mean, honestly, I'm sure a lot of these teams are like hoping that Bruce Brown sticks around with the Raptors. Maybe the trade deadline comes around. Maybe you get rid of some salary, or otherwise you might even look in a situation where you like end up buying out the contract and like someone else getting on for cheaper. Because like, I don't know, a 1st round. I mean, I would salute the Raptors if they got a 1st-round pick for Bruce Brown.
Big time.
I really would. Yeah.
But that Siakam trade is still, it's like the cloud that's still hanging over them, because if you look at like the OG trade, obviously turned out great and helped them really solidify like a young core with Scotty. Again, the moves they made so far in the offseason, as we were talking off the top, I thought were like solid for where they are in their cycle. It's just that, man, that Siakam deal. And listen, I know it got a little better by getting Agbaji and Olynyk and whatever, like after that. But for the most part, just that's the deal that right now is hanging over this franchise like a dark cloud. To trade, you know, at worst a borderline all-star, borderline all-NBA type talent, pretty much still in his prime, and to be sitting here all these months later talking about whether they can flip Bruce Brown, who might be the best player from that deal, into a first-round pick, like that's pretty depressing.
Yeah, basically, like the Bruce Brown thing is like if you like skipped all your classes university and then you go in the final exam, that's worth like 80% of your mark, and you're like, yo, I'm gonna cram the night before. Like that's what the Bruce Brown situation is looking like right now, man.
One of my favorite things to repeat.
We're not passing this course. I'm sorry.
One of my favorite things to repeat on Pound the Rock since that trade was because, like, if you had told before I knew what the incoming package was, if you just told me, oh, they traded Siakam, I'd be like, where? Indiana. I'd be like, oh, they got some really intriguing young players. Which one or two did we get?
Right. Did we get Nembhard?
Dude.
Did we get Jarris
My
Walker?
favorite thing to repeat on Pound the Rock in the months since has been not even an effing Ben Shepherd. Like, you couldn't even get me a Ben Shepherd? Come on.
Oh, man. Love his little mustache, by the way, man. He looks like a little boy with a mustache. It's actually adorable.
All right,
I can't even talk because I can't grow
Bruce
facial hair, and the only part mine comes in is the mustache region, so I can't even hate on Ben Shepherd. And I would love Ben Shepherd right now more than I love Bruce Brown. So
you're looking like an Italian Phil Foden right now, bro. You just need to shape.
I can't.
That's not a good thing. I take that back, man. No, he got that Calafiore aura right now.
I gotta grow my hair out.
Look at the jawline.
Oh, brother. All right, guys. That's enough, Raptors.
And, you want to talk about Garrett Temple coming back?
And
man?
Joe Cash. Oh, yeah. Garrett Temple coming back. What are your thoughts, Will, on the big vet coming back?
Yo, that's up to you as the producer, man. Let's hit up the people at Priority Sports. Mark Bartelstein. I know you got bigger things to deal with right now.
What are you, Woj, right now? Do you want to list off every agent?
Damn. I don't know. I was coming on for an ad read about Priority Sports, bro.
Yo, where's our Garrett Temple interview, man?
Hey, by the way,
GT's our guy.
Well, the none of these deals are official, so nobody can actually acknowledge them.
Right, moratorium. Right.
You know, we were going to transition into talking about the second apron, which like the Players Association obviously agreed to with the owners. And, you know, we've been giving Grant Williams and CJ McCollum a lot of shit for that because I think they're kind of like the face of the union. But I just want to mention that Garrett Temple is part of that group. So
relax. He's one of like 18 vice presidents, man. He's like the 9 Nazgul. Like,
no,
he's one of
somebody
those, okay?
did not review that DocuSign. Is all I'm saying.
You guys should bring Garrett Temple on, but only talk to him about the CBA and the second apron.
Right.
Yo, you're a good vet, but you're not playing anyway. Might as well talk to us about the thing you've actually contributed most to in the last couple of years. Although shout out Garrett Temple, he is a solid vet that teams like having around.
No, I'm glad Garrett's. I'm glad Garrett's coming back. Like they obviously have a super young team, and he's gonna bring that presence along with Bruce Brown, who will be here probably for at least half the season. So.
Awesome. Yeah, they're going to be doing the shooting drills in the corner again.
Oh, brother. All right, free agency. I got a bunch of questions for you guys. And the first one, you know, Cash, you had referenced that, you know, this was a very slow free agency. You know, teams are being very cautious about moves. And for some of the reasons of the second apron might be because, you know, that might be the reason why some of these major players, some of the stars, you know, left for other teams. So just want to ask you guys, like, you know, did the second apron kind of mess the league up in terms of just like setting teams up on how they can build rosters?
Like, I think saying it messed the league up is maybe like a bridge too far. And it's obviously too early to make any kind of like sweeping takeaways like that. But I definitely think there are serious, probably unintended consequences here. Like the bad thing too is that it lets owners cheap out and spend less without the public shame that usually comes with it, the penny pinching, because they can just blame the very real limitations that come with the second apron, which are bad for business, and be like, well, it's not that we don't want to spend the money. It's just we don't want to get caught in this second apron and not be able to do this, X, Y, and Z. And also, like, while it discourages guys like Ballmer from spending without any care in the world, without caring about the repeater tax and all that, like the unintended consequence is that it punishes well-built, homegrown teams that scout well, develop well, do all that. The question I have is, more so than like, you know, it's slowing down free agency or any of that, as we go on here through the years and as you start seeing teams, like I said, those homegrown teams that should be rewarded, but instead are going to be punished by having to break up those teams after a while. And as the league further balances out, because that is kind of what it's designed for, right? To level the playing field in an era where there's already almost unprecedented levels of parity. My question is, as the years go by, does a more balanced league where teams rise but fall quicker before they get too expensive lead to more league-wide interest because it is balanced and there's more parity? Or does the like more consistent roster reshuffling and roster turnover actually lead to a situation where these teams and maybe the league itself have no identity, right? Where like as a fan, okay, maybe you've got like the one guy that's there for a long time, but other than that, the pieces around him are always moving and even quicker than they move in and out now, because by the time a team becomes a contender, they're also already starting to look down the road at the second apron penalties and being like, well, we've got this 1, maybe 2 year window to win it, then we got to blow it up. I don't know if that's a good thing either. There's got to be a middle ground between parity and that.
Yeah, that's a great point, because like I think for the league, they would love for like transaction season to be a big thing, right? They would love for, because like that's where like interest in the NBA peaks is in the off season. It's not in the finals. It's not in the in-season tournament. It's actually in free agency, which is like, I think maybe says a lot about how like the NBA has really like commodified its sport on social rather than like on the TV product, on the overall product. It's not about like, let's make the game as best as possible. It's like, let's make the NBA as relevant as possible. And obviously like that's what everyone is there for, right? Everyone loves like to consume this kind of stuff. But like we think back to the Spurs dynasty, for example, like that was a boring dynasty. Like there really wasn't like, you know, like newsy things that you could like, you know, click on or share that much, right? Like if you think about that, like aside from, I guess, the whole Tony Parker thing with Brent Barry, which is like, holy crap, that was terrible. But like aside from that, like that team is just like solid. They make like minimum signings. It's like the headlines are like Matt Bonner has re-signed for another year. You know what I mean? Like it's like that versus like, you know, you look at how would that even happen today? Like the Celtics, for example, tried to build sustainably. And like, I'm not cheering for the Celtics. I hate the Celtics. But like the fact that they're like, all right, we're going to pay everybody. And this is looked at as like, it's crazy. Who's going to pay these guys? Like, dude, that's what we're here for. It's like win a championship. Like, how is it not like, I'm going to say riots in Denver, but like, how is it not like every single day people slamming the Nuggets for the fact that they're just letting their core team walk away? Bruce Brown. Okay, fine. Bruce Brown got a crazy deal and he left. But like KCP gets a reasonable deal and he leaves. Like, what are you doing? You're wasting some of Jokic's prime. But it's just seen as like somewhat acceptable that they're going to replace him with what, Westbrook? Like, no, like that part I think is really disappointing. And I think that like the league as a whole, like you could either prioritize like being as newsworthy as possible or building like the best product and best teams as possible. And quite frankly, like I actually wouldn't mind if they went back a little bit to super teams or like at least eras where you recognize what the team's about, because like low key, like, well, look what we just saw in the last couple months. The NBA Finals was very boring, okay? The NBA Draft, not a lot of action happened, and there weren't, like, huge names in it either. And then you look at the start of free agency, and the first day, we're all wondering, like, we're looking like, yo, we came here early so we could see Andre Drummond change teams. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what's going on with the NBA business? Like, it's not looking great for me right now.
Yeah, and if you look at through the years in, like, NBA history, the last time there was this much parity and no real super team was the late 70s. Mm-hmm. And all we hear about in our generation that wasn't really around to actually watch Bird and Magic in the 80s was about how Bird and Magic and that Lakers-Celtics rivalry and those two super teams saved the NBA, right? Where their finals were on tape delay and no one gave a shit about it coming out of the 70s. Then obviously the 80s and the 90s with Jordan's Bulls, the 2000s with the Lakers, even the Spurs. Like the NBA has not actually experienced a prolonged run without a super team, without a dynasty, without one of those like identities, without one of those teams you really need to beat, right? You're tuning in just to see if they'll be beaten. They haven't experienced a prolonged run like that, or at least a successful prolonged run like that. And so I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying the NBA can't continue to be a booming enterprise, you know, without one of those super teams. I'm just saying that so far in almost 8 decades of NBA basketball, there is no precedent for it. Because the only other time it's been like that was the least popular the league has ever been.
Yeah, the parity thing too, the problem is like I think about football. Like football I think gets pushed for parity a lot because like, you know, every season you see like regular season teams from last year kind of jump from like last place and become like division winners. But the big problem for the league still is like in the NFL, their 16, 17 game schedule or whatever, the regular season matters so much. The problem that the NBA just hasn't solved with parity or not is like the regular season just doesn't draw any interest now. Like people just don't have interest unless you're following your own team for like 82 games or whatever. Like there's just not a general interest into regular season basketball. So like everything just kind of hinges on the playoffs. And like Will mentioned, aside from a couple series like this like playoff run, like there wasn't really a lot of memorable kind of games, a lot of memorable moments and stuff. And that's when you need like a Warriors team or like a Heat team with like LeBron Wade, where everybody is just drawn to that. But I kind of just go back to the fact that whatever the regular season is, I don't even know what the fix is. Like, it's just hard to draw interest in an NBA regular season now.
Yeah, it's starting to feel like a baseball kind of season, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like, it doesn't matter that the Jays have lost like 15 in the last 20 games, it feels like.
Yeah.
Just doesn't matter. It's like, I'll check in September, maybe.
If you want me to break my laptop and not be able to continue in this conversation, keep talking about the Blue Jays. But no, listen, I think the fix, the problem is that the easy fix is the thing that will never happen because it would mean less money, and that's shortening the season. Like I have forever thought, and you'll like this as a soccer fan, but I've always thought you'd imagine how awesome the NBA would be if every team just plays every team twice, home and away. West, East, doesn't matter.
58 games.
That's a 58 game season. You play the other 29 teams twice, no conferences, and at the end of those 58 games, top 16 make it. You bracket goes there. Heck, you can still do a play-in if you want.
Yeah.
Like whatever. But you talk about meaning. Like it's a 58 game season, and even a stacked team gets out of the gate slowly. Now you're like, oh, what are we going to be the 9 or 10 seed and have to play a good team? Or like that adds meaning. That makes every game feel like it's worth watching if you're not a hardcore fan. But again, that's the easy fix that the NBA will never go for. Just like Alex, to your point about the play-in, where it's like, if they actually cared about like the quality there, they would do what they did the bubble year and be like, listen, you have to at least be within this many games of 8, or you have to be a 500 team, whatever. But that would mean now potentially eliminating some years what are already guaranteed dates. They've got the new TV deal. Like, it's just not going to happen.
You could keep at it. You could also extend it to the first round should be best of 5. Like, best of 5 was way more fun back then because, like, if a team upset, the favorite in the first game, like, suddenly, like, that's a much-watched series for, like, the rest of the whole series. But, again, they're not going to do it because then now you're cutting down on playoff revenue.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
well,
anyways,
I mean,
the NBA's down bad right now.
No, honestly, man, no NBA's on
though.
fire, man. Let's go.
we love the basketball.
Yeah, I love this game.
We love basketball. I just I would love for the league to be in a healthier place. I really would.
The funny thing is, like, we say all this, and I agree with you guys, but then you actually look at it, and it's like, okay, the league, I believe, with the new media rights deal, is about to surpass Major League Baseball for the first time ever and become the number 2 revenue league in the States.
Yeah, that's because we're getting 16 commercials on ESPN between every first quarter break.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, for everything we're saying, and about how
it's a healthy business right now.
Right.
Yeah.
The business is healthy, but is the sport healthy? I think those are two separate things too, right? Because like a lot of the money that's coming in right now is like, okay, streaming services are looking to buy in to the next like package deal, right? And that's like a one-time thing. That's not like next time they renegotiate, there's going to be like a new technology that comes in. I don't know, maybe. Who knows? Who knows? Honestly, 20 years from now, maybe it's like VR. It's like it's the next competitor or whatever. But like there's that one-time boost. And there's also the one-time boost that you're never going to get back again of the fact that there's like a lot more gambling money that has come in now, right? But those are like one-time things. Again, once those things wear off to a certain degree, and this is why I really do think that like some of the teams are looking to the fact that like the Celtics, for example, being for sale, the Suns of being for sale, the Timberwolves being for sale, like so many teams being up for sale, even with the Raptors, like Larry T looking to like move off some of his shares. Although I don't think that's necessarily due to the league's economics, but it's like I think people are seeing up ahead that like, okay, we've cashed in on gambling, we've cashed in on the new TV deal, we're probably going to cash in soon on the expansion of 2 more teams to Seattle and Las Vegas. Everyone's going to get like a $50-60 million check off those. After that, where's the new money going to come from? And at that point, it's like, okay, can you make the basketball as good as possible?
Yeah. So. Asian Darren Rovell over here.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
Giving me those vibes.
But the Celtics one really is interesting because I think that does speak to an ownership group that's probably like, hey, we feel like we've maximized our investment here. Let's leave on a high note and on top before things maybe start getting a little shaky. And also, like, Will, you talked about their willingness to continue spending, and they know they're going to be a second apron team. I'd argue the Celtics are in a unique position because unlike most second apron teams, they actually have a full rotation and core locked up. So they also have most of their own draft picks, so they will bring in like cheap younger talent over the years. But even saying all that, we don't know what a new ownership group's going to look like. What if the new ownership group comes in And I would bet that this is how they would come in and say, hey, okay, I don't know how long we're actually okay being a second apron team. And I don't know, maybe a year from now, despite them winning another title or being in contention to win another title, we're talking about this new ownership group actually wanting to trade one of the two J's because they don't think it's acceptable to be a second apron team for that many years.
Yeah, and also
it's either that or they're getting like the really rich international money. So like if you look at like soccer, for example, it's like how many teams are owned not by owners of that domestic country. Now, of course, like we're talking about smaller countries like Italy and like England are like obviously smaller than the United States, right? But like the NBA right now and primarily has been a league that's been owned by Americans who like are roughly in the same circle. They're going to have to go outside of this circle. They're going to bring in Saudi money and things like that. And that's just what's happened in other sports. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, when you get into second apron like the Celtics, it's like, cool, you have a cool core. But say like Porzingis or like Derek White, like two guys go down, suddenly you're in the apron. Like you can't do anything when you're stuck there. Like you can't even sell beer at the stadium. Like I swear that's part of the rules.
We're talking Boston, not Utah. Also,
like you can't sell hot dogs once you're in the second apron, man.
But as much as we joke about it, man, the draft pick penalties, like some people have talked about it, but I really don't think they're being talked about enough, man. Like, you're
frozen. The pick gets frozen.
Your pick 7 years out gets frozen. Like if you are above the second apron on the last day of the regular season in 2024-25, your 2032 first rounder gets frozen, and the only way to unfreeze it is to be under the second apron in 3 of the next 4 years. So the earliest you can unfreeze it would then be like 2028. But if you don't unfreeze it, not only is it still frozen, it also automatically goes to the bottom of the 2032 draft, no matter how poorly you perform in the 2031-32 season. Like that is potentially devastating for a franchise. And so as much as I teased about, or not even teased, I was serious about how like this is an excuse for the owners to cheap out because now they can just blame it on the restrictions that come with the second apron. Those are very real restrictions that like owners, executives, whatever have to think about. Like, can you imagine losing or not losing, but like knowing 4 to 7 years in advance that your pick in that year is just absolutely going to be at the bottom of the draft, no matter how poor you could be. A perennial 60-loss team, and you know that coming year, like you've got no chance. Like, it's insane.
Yo, you can't trade for an extra $1. Like it's terrible.
No, it's insane.
I'm telling you can't print out you can't do free t-shirt giveaways. Like you can't intro your starters with fireworks. Like it's crazy, man. Again,
no, but like why didn't they just go for hard cap then? Like obviously like I know the reasons why the player union will never go for hard cap, but it's like so punitive that it's essentially a hard cap.
It's an unofficial hard cap. And the players signed off on it because it wasn't called a hard cap or an upper spending.
Once again, one of these guys in the union didn't read the document.
Get Garrett Temple on here, man.
Yo, Garrett Temple, man. Get you and Mark Bartelstein on this program. I just got some questions, man.
All right, let's run through some of these other questions I have for you guys about the offseason. Guys, start with you, Cash. Cash, who's the second best team after the Celtics in the East right now?
Philly. I think the Knicks... Before the PG trade, I would have said the Knicks, but I think it's Philly, man. I think for as many concerns come with a PG Embiid duo in terms of like their injury history, their playoff performances, whatever, an Embiid, PG, Maxey, big three fits together so perfectly. They complement each other in so many ways. Like George and Embiid can insulate Maxey defensively. I just think that, and there's also like more insurance there now in the event one of them gets hurt, the other, like, I just think it for so many reasons, this is the best big three we've seen in a few years. And I think that it's in terms of like wannabe super teams, one that complements each other better than any we've seen in a while. But like honestly, they're not going to get to these heights, but I'm just saying since KD left the Warriors, if you look at some of the super teams that have popped up or tried to pop up, none of them have fit together and been as balanced as this big three. So I think the Sixers are the second best team in the East.
Yeah, that's where I gotta disagree with you, man. It's for me, it's the Knicks. I think depth is actually truly valuable, and I think that when you have players who have shown an ability to actually play at a high intensity for extended stretches and be healthy, that's the number one concern that is there with the Sixers. You can look at it on paper. Honestly, on paper, like the big three is really nice. Like I'm not gonna discount them at all, but like they got like 1 or 2 years at this thing. And you were also like, come on, man. Embiid, the amount of times that it's like, he's not healthy sometimes, but it's also like you see like certain games, like this year, for example, was it game 4 or game 5 where like he was just like standing in the corner while Maxey had to like save him, and that was the game where he hit the game winner. If it wasn't for that, man, the discourse around Embiid, like it's not just that he's like obviously very productive in the regular season and it tails off to some degree in the playoffs, because he does have some good playoff games, but I just don't trust it enough for a 7-game series, especially multiple 7-game series. And then you throw on top Paul George as well. Like the fact that they're winking each other on ESPN is like just two single people meeting at a wedding when they're in their late 40s. Like, yeah, it's your last chance, buddy. Like, you might as well wink at this person because that's what you got right now.
Yo, this is a great promotion for my wedding in October.
Guys describing me at Cash's wedding right now. He's like, you pushing 40? Time's running out, my brother.
Yeah, no, they're literally winking each other at the bar. I'm like, yeah, of course, man. Like, who else you got? Everyone else around you got some situation going on. Like,
no, listen,
that's the vibe that PG and B give me. Obviously, on paper, they do fit really well. All those things really work well together. But like, I'm gonna need to see it, man. Meanwhile, the Knicks for me are like super hardworking, super gritty. They got great depth. Jalen Brunson is just amazing. And then you got OJ and Mikal Bridges, who like might hold Paul George to like 15 points per game at this point. Like, they're so good defensively.
Yeah, and there is something to the Knicks kind of like going the Boston route where it's like, okay, their best player isn't the traditional championship level alpha superstar, but he's like as good and as dependable as it gets without being in that tier. And then they just surround him with like no weak points, an extremely good like 6 to 8 man rotation. Great on both sides of the ball. Like I see the vision and I get it. And that's why I think like the Mikal Bridges trade, while an overpay, was a justifiable overpay. But there is a part of me that wonders if the Knicks like raised their already high floor with that trade, where it's like I'm more sure than ever that like they can sleepwalk to like a top 3 or 4 seed in the East this year. But I something about it like does not convince me that they actually raised their championship ceiling. And again, maybe I'm just being stubborn. Maybe I haven't learned enough from watching the Celtics and win the way they did. But I don't know. And that's coming from someone, as you guys know, has not hated on, but like has criticized Joel Embiid for years for his playoff performances. This is a guy that I called Paul George a Tin Man a few years ago for having no heart in a playoff series. Joel Embiid is literally the worst elimination game performer I've ever seen from a superstar, like even worse than Harden. So I get it. I get why the doubts are there, but there is just, for as much as I like that Knicks team, there was just something about that mix of talent where I'm like, I really like this team. I can see them getting to like game 7 of an East final, but I don't think I quite believe in them actually having a chance to win a championship. Whereas for the Sixers, I do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the big thing with the Knicks right now is like they need a little bit more size. Like losing Hartenstein is not nothing, man. So they need to find a way to get another center, someone who's 7 foot, could do all the hard work. You know, maybe give us some of their first round picks. I don't know, man. I mean, you look around the East. I mean, Jakob Poeltl fits that profile. Like, you know, like maybe call us again. You know, put that lawsuit aside. You know, we're gonna settle that one. Adam Silver's gonna do that one for us. So let's get to calling each other again, man. Let's do it.
If the Knicks and Nets can make a trade together for the first time since what, the 80s?
Right.
The Raptors and Knicks can make a second trade in 2 years despite being embroiled in a lawsuit.
Just let me know if there's ever been one trade between New York and Toronto that has not worked out for Toronto. So.
Oh man, no, it's I wish Wolfon was here because this is where he would chime in and argue that Orlando is actually going to be the second best team in the East. You knew this would happen, dude.
What? Yeah. You know, when KCP comes off Zoom action, yo, I love you, Wolfon, bro.
Salute.
Oh man! All right,
and I love Zoom action. There you go.
Let's go to the West here. You know, the Thunder made a huge big moves, like you mentioned. Will they signed Isaiah Hartenstein? They traded. He's got a weird case. Why is he around Josh Giddey for Alex Caruso? Re-signed 2 players that Wolfon probably knows well: Aaron Wiggins and Isaiah Joe. Are the Thunder the favorites in the West right now, guys? Cash.
Yes, I think the way I look at it is they were the number 1 seed in the West last year. But now they are truly the best team in the West. Where like I know it's crazy to say because we're in July, but if we were going into the playoffs, I would actually pick them in the playoffs, not just to be the best regular season team. I think they are the best team in the West, full stop. We're talking about like an elite two-way team with a great defense that added arguably the best perimeter defender in the NBA, and then addressed their one defensive or roster-related weakness in terms of like size and rebounding with Hartenstein. Like, they don't have any holes. They have an MVP level superstar who's in the early stages of his prime. Two more all-star level players still on their rookie scale contracts for another couple of years. They've managed to do all this and address those needs I mentioned too, without actually dipping in to that treasure trove of draft picks and trade capital they have. Like, I think they're already the best team in the West. They have avenues to get even better. They're like, what are we, 10 months before, they're 9 months before the playoffs start? This is my pick to come out of the West.
Yeah, I got to agree with you, honestly. I think Dallas, I could see Dallas still struggling a little bit, or them still struggling a little bit with Dallas, but like even that series is pretty close this year, right? Like it took like a lot of the role players hitting a lot of big threes to be able to sort of slow them down. But I think OKC has the right formula in addition to the right players, like 5 out, be able to switch, lots of depth, play really fast. That's the style that we saw work really well in the playoffs this year, you know? And I think that in terms of building something close to the Celtics, like they're probably the closest one to that for me right now. I think that they could probably even have flexibility to make more moves if they decide to need to do that. But quite frankly, like I'm looking at scenarios where it's like, imagine like Lou Dort and Alex Cruz are on the court at the same time. Like, yeah, I mean, who's it's gonna be hard to really score against this team.
And Shea, like Shea's a great defender at the point of attack now.
Yeah.
Like
sure,
him and Caruso and Dort, and then like Holmgren and Hartenstein either together or like platooning, protecting the rim. Like this team's nasty, man.
Yeah, because they all, they still have all their draft picks too. I don't think they even moved a single first rounder.
They got Caruso by moving Giddey.
Yeah, so
Right.
guys, what's the final move that's gonna happen is so they're gonna like win 60 games this year. Maybe make it to the conference finals, get knocked out by whoever, and then they're gonna put together a package and bring Kevin Durant back to OKC.
Damn,
Oh,
I'd love it.
That's what's gonna happen.
That.
That's what's gonna happen.
Love it.
Oh my god, that's like the perfect redemption story for KD
Yeah,
too. Because if he wins one with OKC,
This is literally the
man.
only storyline for KD to like finally redeem himself.
Yeah, too bad.
yeah, he needs to do the LeBron basically.
Yeah, he needs this more than OKC does. So
Too bad
he
those-
should start setting that up.
Those hillbillies can't put the bullets back in the shotguns that they were using to shoot his jerseys. Remember when friggin' Durant
Oh
left?
my
those-
god. No,
Watch
you can
out.
always forget those things. Like, come on, like Dan Gilbert wrote a hit 'em up against LeBron. And they were
Dan
fine.
Gilbert said, "F the James family as a record label and a whole a mother effing crew."
Yeah.
He wrote Family Matters and Comic Sans,
Yo,
man.
yeah, he said meet the James.
And LeBron still went back
Yeah,
and brought
man.
them a chip. So
man.
what's a little bit of shooting at a jersey?
Oh man. All right.
Yeah,
All right.
I love that, man.
Next-
54 is OD shooting hang poles, man.
Yeah, Hank Paul gonna get traded to Phoenix for KD, man. Which move do you guys think will have a bigger impact on the West? Klay joining the Mavericks or the Nuggets losing KCP?
I'm going to say Klay joining the Mavericks because as much as I do think like KCP leaving hurts, and Will mentioned like the talent drain that's happened there since they won the title, I still think that Nikola Jokic's brilliance will make whoever it is, whether it's Christian Brown or whoever steps into that role, Nikola Jokic will make that guy look way better than he actually is. And even though they won't fully replace KCP, they'll masquerade in a way that it feels like they have replaced them, at least in the regular season. So I'm going to say the more impactful move is actually Klay going to Dallas. I think Klay, even though he's a shell of his former self, and especially on the defensive end, has lost a step. Like, we're still talking about a guy that's a 38, 39% three-point shooter in a bad year. And probably with the right spacing around him and everything, is a 40+% shooter still. Great off-ball guy, movement shooter in a system that's now going to have, open looks spraying out to him from the driving kick action of Luka and Kyrie. I think it's a really good landing spot for Klay. I know there's defensive questions there that they have to answer, but I think this was a pretty perfect match for Klay at this stage of his career.
Yeah, I love this for Klay because I think a couple things. I was worried for Klay when he left Golden State. Is he going to do it for ego? Is he going to try to go to like LA and it's like the storybook ending or whatever? He's like, no, I'm going to pick the situation that is going to pay me less money, which is what Dallas offered, right? Dallas, I think LA was like, LeBron was like, yo, I'll personally take a $20 million pay cut if you come here on a 4-year, $80 million deal. Like, taking the fact that LeBron was going to pay Klay Thompson. That's exactly what that was going to be.
In all fairness, no offense to Klay, he was also reportedly willing to do that for Jonas Valanciunas. So I don't know. I don't know what this says about Klay.
Okay, I don't believe that, because I think LeBron was enough. He was here for LeBronto, and he understands that you can't play JV like that in the playoffs. But like, no, he chose Dallas because it's the best situation for winning, and I think that speaks to sort of how competitive Klay is. I actually want to see the Mavs introduce just a little bit more motion into their offense. Like, yes, every possession is going to be Luka and Kyrie, but like just a little bit more, a third creator. Like, it was so painfully obvious they had no third creator, because it's like sometimes I would watch their run to the finals and I'm like, wow, Jaden Hardy, he's a difference maker. And I'm like, wait, hold on. Like, that just really speaks to the fact that like people were begging for Tim Hardaway Jr. after game 1 of the finals. It's like they clearly didn't have a third creator. And I think Klay, his creation isn't like he has to jack up some shots, which he has to get away from that. But like the ability to move around, cause panic, cause a slight moment of hesitation, and then boom, one of their guys are slipping to the basket. That's going to be really nice. So, I mean, KCP, hopefully the Nuggets can find something there. But I think the issue with the Nuggets is just like their GM and their head coach don't see eye to eye, because every time Calvin Booth brings in somebody, Michael Malone doesn't play them unless they're a vet. And so now he's trying to like ship off some of the vets and just force them to play the young guys. Well, we'll see if the coach actually is able to A, play them, and also B, integrate them in the way that feels best. So
yeah, this is where Wolfon would chime in and say the move that have a bigger impact is whether Quentin Grimes can replace Josh Green's minutes off the bench in Dallas. Next up, the Clippers.
We love you, Wolfon, man. Gonna miss Pound the Rock so much, man. Enjoy portaging.
I'm gonna group these 3 teams together, and you guys can pick which team you want to talk about. Not sure what these teams are doing, what they're gonna do next now. In the West, Clippers, Warriors, and Lakers. Which team you want to talk about, Cash?
I mean, the Clippers, just because they're the most nonsensical, and I find the most fascinating because of how stupid they acted. Listen, I know everything I said about the second apron and how restricting it is and how devastating it could be going forward, but like the Clippers willingly took a step back despite being one of the teams who could least afford to do so, and then watched one of their 2 All-Stars join the team that controls their picks in 2028 and 2029. Like, don't tell me it's about saving tax dollars when Steve Ballmer is literally the richest owner in all of pro sports, worth $130 billion. Don't tell me it's about the second apron when the 3-year deal they reportedly offered George would have kept them in the second apron anyway. Like, it seems to me that the straw that broke the camel's back here was literally just whether to give Paul George a 4th year or not in 2027, 2028. And it's like, that's where you're going to draw the line when you are the definition of all in. They don't control their own pick till 2030. They're moving into a multi-billion-dollar arena that was supposed to be like their big announcement of finally being free of the Lakers' shadow. Kawhi's recently extended. They have no young talent. Like, they had no option other than to just try to win. And instead of like doubling down and doing that with PG, you just like let him walk for nothing and then replace him with role players. I don't know, man. I think the Clippers are lost in the sauce. I get that PG, Kawhi, and Harden obviously was not the safest path to a championship, but at the very least, that core ceiling was a championship. And you saw it when they went 26-5 shortly after getting Harden. Now it's like, okay, you have the better but more injury prone of the 2 stars between Kawhi and PG, a 34-year-old Harden, and depth. That does not come with a championship ceiling, and you're still just as screwed going forward. So it's like, what did you really accomplish other than saving $130 billionaire some tax money?
Yeah, I don't get it. This is like if you're deep into a poker hand, you're like you like bluffed 2 or 3 times, like you bluffed before the turn, you bluffed on the river, and then all of a sudden you just fold to a re-raise. Like, what are you doing? Like, now you're playing with like $20 left. Each hand is $5. Like, you have no future here. It's really sad looking at the Clippers, man. And especially because it's like, okay, fine, you want to move off of Paul George. What can you get back for Paul George? Oh, literally nothing. Like, you're just letting him walk for literally nothing. You can't even get a sign and trade. And then second of all, it's like, what's plan B? At least if plan B was somewhat okay, then like you would look at it like, fine, maybe they try something else. Clearly, it was just very frustrating to see the two of them just underwhelm every single year. But their plan B is like, yo, let's get every felon in the NBA and let's put them together. Like, what are we doing here, man? Like, seriously, look at the roster construction of this team. It's disgusting. Why are you bringing Kevin Porter Jr. back to the NBA? His charges are like genuine, like, it's so disgusting to see that. And then they're like, well, maybe we'll get Miles Bridges too. I'm like, for what, man? Like, were you moving this team to a prison or are you moving to the Intuit Dome? Like, what's happening here?
You've heard of the mid-level exception, the biannual exception, and all that. The Clippers are the only team in the league that have the human garbage exception. Just trash person exception. And apparently they have an unlimited amount of them. It's a joke. And to your point too, about like if they had a plan B, whatever. Okay, clearly, like I said, they were not willing to give PG more than the 3-year, close to the max, whatever. They had to have been smart enough to know that given that PG is still an all-star, still an elite two-way wing, he was going to get a max on the open market. Like, I'm sorry. If you're a competent NBA GM, you know that's coming. And you know that at 34 years old, he's probably looking for one last big payday. And if there's like a $50 to $60 million difference in what you're willing to give him and what someone's going to give him on the open market, he's probably gone. So why the hell did you not trade him then in this? Like, if they weren't willing to pay him and to accept all the penalties that come with it, blah, 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 why didn't they trade him and actually get something back from him? If they were okay replacing Paul George with just role players and crap, and they also knew they weren't going to resign him, why didn't they trade him during the season? And they could have got role players and crap, but also maybe recouped some draft capital?
That's the only way off this thing. Is like they probably got to move off Kawhi eventually and move off James Harden eventually. The thing is, like, they're getting older and older. And I mean, like, I don't know, man. I would say free Kawhi at this point, but like, yo, you did this to yourself, man.
No, my favorite thing is like the two star guys in LA. You got LeBron like pressing Rob Pelinka like every day, like putting it out there every year, like year-to-year contract. Like, yo, I'm gonna give up $20 million if you can get a guy. Meanwhile, Kawhi's just in Costa Rica drinking out of a coconut while his whole roster gets destroyed. Also, like, you didn't even mention Cash. Like, I know that Philly owns some of their picks from the James Harden deal. OKC still got some picks from the deal from way back. So here's the other scenario that's going to happen. You know, Clippers move into Intuit Dome. You know, Derek Jones Jr. and the return of Nick Batum really isn't really hitting. They're like a 500 team. You know, Terrence Mann's not really hitting. Amir Coffey's not really hitting. And Sam Presti calls them and goes, yo, give you your picks back. You can build, and I'll take Kawhi Leonard. Ooh. So Kawhi to OKC.
Kawhi to OKC. And
Kawhi's instantly retiring, by the way, when that happens.
What was the other one you said? Kawhi to OKC. What was the first one you said?
What KD to OKC?
Oh yeah, Kawhi
like KD to OKC
and KD to OKC is the ultimate like go for broke parlay, and I need you to find somewhere to actually put money on that.
Yeah, OKC is going to bring 3 Jalen Williamses off the bench, man.
I'm telling you, this is the new NBA thing now of just like giving picks back to teams now.
I love it.
Yeah, no, so that's the move. All right.
You're basically just renting stars. Now, the funniest thing with the Clippers, too, is like, they're like, oh, we can't get rid of Terrence Mann. He's our young star. It's like, no,
he's 39.
He's 27, man. Like, let's be real here. Like, come on,
if Terrence Mann was any older, he'd be winking at someone at the bar at my wedding, bro.
Oh, my God. All right, last couple before we wrap up. I want to hear from you guys. Your what was the most underrated move of free agency? Something that maybe people didn't talk about as much.
Najee Marshall to the Mavs. I think last year, them signing Derek Jones Jr. to a minimum contract ended up being one of like the low-key moves of the offseason. You saw the role he played in them getting to the finals. I think Najee Marshall has the chance to be the low-key signing of this offseason. It wasn't for the minimum. I think it was like for $8 million a year. But, you know, he's a nasty defender. Good reserve, was part of one of the best benches in the league in New Orleans. But also sneakily really improved his shooting. This is a guy who couldn't shoot before, was like a 38% shooter this year. Not a lot of volume, but still, big jump. And where it was most apparent is he was a 42% shooter from the corners. Which team creates the most corner threes? The Dallas Mavericks with that drive and kick game of Luka and Kyrie. I think, like we talked about this being a perfect spot for Klay. This is a perfect spot for Najee Marshall, who actually will get the best looks of his life as an improved shooter while also helping them shore up the defense. Like they need Najee Marshall's defense. I think this is a really, really good match of like player and team. And I think Najee Marshall's one of those guys where 6 months from now, a lot of kind of more casual NBA fans that don't know the kind of like mid-level and less guys, they're going to find out who Najee Marshall is. He's going to be more of a household name by the end of this coming season.
Yeah, no, I like that pick. That's a good one. I got Garrett Temple re-signing to the Raptors.
Oh my God! By this team, per Mark Bartelstein of Priority Sports.
Yo, come on the pod, man. Let me say hello and welcome to Garrett Temple one more time. No, actually, like this is not a change in team, but the fact that Kelly Oubre like stayed in Philly, I think Philly really, really needs quality depth. Kelly really was just a big hit for Philadelphia. I don't know what it is. But like his evil matched with like Joel's evil and Nick Nurse's evil, and it just all just clicked together. You know, they had some really good moments, and the fact that they got him back so cheap, like they obviously need a lot of depth with that group, and I'm sure they'll continue to add like more former Houston Rockets as the season goes on, because that's what Daryl Morey does. But like, no, I think that was actually a pretty vital move for them, because I thought Kelly set himself really nicely for a big payday, and he just chose to stay in a situation he was comfortable. Just no more riding bikes, though.
Dude, so when you said that, I was just saying, did you guys see the tweet that went viral? Forgive me, I don't remember who tweeted it, but the night Kelly Oubre resigned, so a Philly fan tweeted out, "We hit this man with a car and he still resigned. Don't ever tell me that Philly sports is dead," or like something along those lines. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
The other great one. Sorry, one more about Philly. Yeah. I brought this up on Pound the Rock too. Someone at one of like the big outlets had put on Instagram a picture of the Sixers' new big three with the caption like, "Who can stop this?" or "Who's going to stop this team?" And the top comment was "Head and shoulders, knees and toes."
Oh my God. I thought you were in a comment on newly signed Sixer Eric Gordon and how closely that camera was on him yesterday.
No, I didn't see that. I didn't see that.
Man. Yeah, you gotta watch the clip. I've never seen a man in 4K, man. Yo, this was in 40K.
Sounds like the Sixers need that Black Dragon Roll level production, man.
No, shouts to Jerome.
The Sixers didn't need Paul George. They needed Jerome,
by the way.
Stepping in for Wolfon here, I believe he would have said either PJ Dozier to the Minnesota Timberwolves or Taurean Prince to the Milwaukee Bucks. So.
Bro, what about DeLon Wright to the Milwaukee Bucks?
Oh,
man? That's a big
damn,
one right
that's
there.
a Wolfon. That's a Wolfon right there.
Where did Joe Ingles go?
The Wolves. He would have he would have liked Ingles as well, man.
Ooh, they bring that whole Utah Jazz team off the bench.
They said we need even a slower moment.
The joke's gonna be on you guys when the Lakers come to town and Wolfon refuses to talk to you.
Oh man!
Oh man!
All right,
he's busy drawing up Zoom action for Bronny.
Let's wrap this up with your biggest winner and loser of free agency. Cash, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll just say honestly, I don't even think I have to explain them because I think over the course of this conversation, I've explained both. Yeah. Biggest winner Sixers, biggest loser Clippers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think you can really argue otherwise. I would say the Knicks, but again, like if they retain Hartenstein, I would have said the Knicks, but they could not retain Hartenstein, and so all of a sudden they really need to go back out there to get a center. So those are the two clear favorites for me. I mean, you could say OKC to a smaller degree. I'll say OKC and Denver in terms of like winner and loser. Let's just to be different, but I really agree with Cash.
I thought you were gonna say Toronto for bringing back Garrett Temple there, man.
Bro. Huge win, man. I'm not even kidding. This locker room needs veterans, man. Come on, man.
Biggest winners because of Garrett Temple's presence, Toronto Raptors youngsters, and NBA owners because of the second apron.
We're not going to pin that on him.
Wolfon answering on behalf of him, going with the Spurs. I think picking up CP3 to mentor Victor Wembanyama, it's gonna show that impact in like the next 5 to 10 years. Yeah.
How many assists per game do you think Chris Paul is going to average to Victor?
I just want Chris Paul to recreate the yelling at DeAndre Jordan meme, but with Wemby, and then get waived the next day.
I was going to say, the moment he yells at Wemby, the moment his career is
coming
over.
To FX spurred. Who's going to play Devin Vassell, man? Brother. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got for the free agency stuff, man. This was cool.
Yeah, this is nice, man. I mean, I know Raptors are not the number one thing you guys talk about, but I know the Raptors are number one in Cash's heart. But follow Cash for all his coverage everywhere. Dude, the stuff you do over the Scorers YouTube channel is awesome. I love watching your video.
Appreciate you, man.
Gonna miss Pound the Rock a ton. Hopefully, the last one's gonna be a big one. And otherwise, I'll see you on the pitch literally tomorrow.
Yeah.
So appreciate everyone for listening. Please continue to listen to Hello and Welcome podcast wherever you find your shows. And that does it for us, and we'll be back to you next week. So thanks everyone for watching the Hello and Welcome podcast presented by Betway.